Man, of all the maps that I would think would have some sort of controversial pronunciation, Hard Lead is not one of them. But in the bottom right, in the red for Mouse Sports, it's HeRoMaRinE.
And his opponent spawning up at the top left for Team Liquid. It is MaNa. One of the new leaders of YouTube. He's been pushing his YouTube pretty hard, and yeah, you know what? A lot of these pro players are switching to the YouTube game, and they're experiencing a lot of success. I think they've looked at people like Thermal and Harstem and said, I could do that. I'm a European player who doesn't play Zerg. I can make a YouTube that's successful, and it's cool to see. It's cool to see. Now, as we see things kind of shaking out here, HeRoMaRinE starting off with a double gas in TVP. That does give you a lot of options. Obviously, there's all the old bag of tricks we've seen on the new patch, but now you can also go for potentially some early Cyclones.
Yeah, and Cyclones are such an interesting idea, right? So, first iteration in the balanced test patch, they were, I think, very notably overpowered. They shredded just about everything. It was, I mean, it was not good. But they've been nerfed a little bit now. They're a lot more reasonable. They're absolutely made of paper. 110 HP, no armor. And they don't kill things quite as quickly. But the interesting thing about that, Steadfast, you talk about these Cyclone openers. Cyclones were designed to give Terran players a way to play mech against Protoss. And of the many things that the Cyclones have achieved over the course of the patch, playing mech against Protoss, I would argue that that is not one of them. Not really.
No, what really strikes me as the power of the Cyclone is one, in TVZ, you add two of them into a Hellion composition, and they kill Lings super quickly. They're really good. In TVT, they're kind of in a weird place where they have some increased utility, some lowered utility. But then in TVP, they're very good fighting units in the early game, but they're certainly not something you want to mass. And yeah, it's very strange that well, not strange, because I think it's good, but I'm glad that they didn't go the direction that they were going before, where it's like, okay, you can make mass Cyclone and just kill everything.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. What it has done, it's funny. The first couple games of the new patch, it was really looking like they were killing. They were absolutely ending any sort of Stargate play. It felt like Terrans could almost reactively reactor out Cyclones and kill Oracles and run across the map and do what we would call a big game push out of that and really put the hammer and tongs to the Protoss. But for the most part, that doesn't seem to be quite as true. Protoss players have figured out how to be a little bit safer in their Stargate openings. Granted, MaNa's not doing this in this game. He's got a Blink opener, and Steadfast, we talked about the things that Cyclones are good at, the things that they're not good at. Well, these heavy Cyclone openers, again, it's a single Cyclone, I think, defensively out of HeRoMaRinE. But I think it's very true to say that one of the big things Cyclones are bad at, Mass Blink Stalkers, they don't handle that one at all.
No, that is pretty much why we don't see Mass Cyclone in this matchup at the top level. On the ladder, I'm sure some players are experiencing success with it. I'm sure a lot of players are experiencing success with it. But at this very high level, we're not going to see success with Mass Cyclone against Mass Blink Stalker play. Now, what we are going to see from HeRoMaRinE is a double mine drop. He basically replaces the Hellion with the Cyclone, and it's very much a similar style to how HeRoMaRinE pretty much always played his standard TVPs out. Now, the Cyclone does, of course, have a lot more fighting power, and HeRoMaRinE's done a good job of keeping these units alive. As I say that, he does lose one Reaper. MaNa does have some good spotting pylons in the main base and is prepared to deal with this, but unfortunately doesn't have the blink done, nor the Stalkers in position. So HeRoMaRinE, at the very least, will be able to force these units away. Oh, can we get a kill on the Widow Mine? Yes, we can. Nice job there from MaNa. Kind of body blocking a little bit with the probe to make sure that second mine doesn't get away, but still, HeRoMaRinE keeps one of the mines and the medevac alive, and that's going to mean this becomes a little bit difficult for MaNa to move across the map without the risk of that running back in and finding some damage.
Yeah, and the thing that surprises me as well is that there's no... Generally, when the medevac gets out, when a Widow Mine gets out, you keep a couple Stalkers just to make sure. But MaNa, now he's going to be okay with it, but he was kind of leaving that room open for just a little bit, as now third base is going to be on the way. But Steadfast, I understand that this is a Blink opener. This is Blink Colossus. This is still a pretty slow third base. It's 520. We still don't have that third Nexus on the way. MaNa playing very defensively against what HeRoMaRinE wants to do. HeRoMaRinE, again, against this closer to a 6:30, 7-minute timing, you can get that third base on the way. And it's giving a little bit more of an advantage to HeRoMaRinE than I think MaNa should necessarily do. And now the WoDs drop into the natural. Your probe pool's going to be fine, though. So another dead probe, that's going to be that. And this time, the WoDs should die.
Yeah, WoDs will get chased down, will get taken down. Now, can MaNa find the medevac? HeRoMaRinE beelining it across the map. He wants to get this home. If MaNa can get the interception, that would be fantastic. He's looking for the angle, and he is going to find the intercept. HeRoMaRinE, oh, he boosts. Okay, they do both realize boost being used. I think MaNa's going to be able. No, he jumps the wrong way. Oh, I was just about to say I think MaNa's going to be able to find this, but he jumps just a little bit in the wrong direction. HeRoMaRinE utilizing the Marine on the watchtower to keep tabs on this. It's not the biggest deal, but keeping that medevac alive when it has so much energy from the early game is nice. It is really nice. MaNa, for his part, that third base is very late. He does go for a very quick second robotics ability, and unfortunately getting supply blocked a little bit at 86. And HeRoMaRinE, I mean, he's cruising. His macro is looking clean. He's even on the workers. This already looks pretty good for HeRoMaRinE, and he's going to find even a little bit more damage with this Ravens auto turret.
Oh, that second auto turret as well is just so cheeky. Yeah, they don't last as long as they did a year ago, but even still, he's denying mining of the entire mineral line, getting 5 probes in this game, as you said, where MaNa was not up in workers. They were even, and now HeRoMaRinE's just ahead. The big thing to point out, though, is that this is double Colossus here. Extended Thermal Lance is going to be done very soon, and the double robo play might give you what you need. But HeRoMaRinE, he just finds inside track into the natural. MaNa's woefully out of position now. The pylon, double robo, MaNa's dead. GG, HeRoMaRinE. He takes game 1. Yeah,
that was brutal.
That happened.
That was so brutal. He completely lost track of the army. The Artosis pylon of the century, 2 robotics facilities, the robotics bay, which, as you said, had an extended thermal lance extremely close to completing. And I mean, even if he cleans up that army at that point, he's going to do it with so many losses. That was just so unfortunate for MaNa.
Yeah, he was. I think he was expecting an attack at the third base, or he was maybe trying to track the Raven down. I'm not sure, but yeah, just very much out of position there. And well, sometimes you got those games. Sometimes HeRoMaRinE just booms you. He repeated that 3 times, in fact, and you know, something in the locker room and misquoting an NBA meme. That's fine. That's one game in this series, Steadfast. This is a best of 5. MaNa, if there's anyone, we talk about how HeRoMaRinE is one of the longest tenured players on Mouse Sports. Actually, longest single team player combinations in general. MaNa is another one of those players that has been around for just about forever, playing in the original StarCraft 2 TSL, and again has been with Liquid for all that long. So if anyone has this ability to go and kind of shake things off and just lean on that competitive experience, well, I would think that MaNa would be one of them, right?
I hope so. But that was such a brutal end to game number 1. I do worry a little bit about that, but we'll see. We'll get into game number 2 on Golden Aura, as we have spawning down in the bottom right. Currently down 1-0 in very unfortunate fashion for Team Liquid. It is MaNa.
And of course, his opponent in the upper left in the red, playing for the red team. It's HeRoMaRinE. And you know, Steadfast, shout out to our admins this time, because this has been ruining me. This has been ruining Wardy as well. We've had a couple games where the player with the red team is on the blue side, and the player with like the gray/blue darker color is on the red side. And figuring out who goes on top, who goes on bottom when you're setting up the overlay at the start of the game, that has been actively messing with me. So MaNa in the blue, Team Liquid blue, HeRoMaRinE in the red, Mouse red. Thank you for not making me lose, or not making me fry any more of my synapses than I might otherwise do. Thank you, admins, for doing that just for me here. It makes life easier.
Actually, that is really nice. It's there's not always does it work out that way, but it's nice when it does. HeRoMaRinE, as we get into game number 2, will go for the double gas once again, and he's going to trap the probe. So if MaNa wants to save this, he has to expend a recall and, well, he has to expend a recall. Oh, nope, not going to be able to do anything with this. Yeah, that was so unfortunate in game number 1. MaNa committed heavily to 2-base tech, heavily to that double robo, and it didn't even come close to paying off yet. Like, he could have just had 2 Colossus with no extended thermal lance off single robo, no problem. But the fact that he had it all being depowered and really didn't get any payoff whatsoever from it, it's a little bit demoralizing, because that feels like that was a specialized build where I would have been really curious to see what MaNa's game plan was behind that. Like, was he planning to go for a really quick, like, no Twilight Council, maybe very fast 4 Colossus Warp Prism push? I wonder, but the unfortunate thing is we may never know unless he elects to go with that build again.
And yeah, I think you're right, Steadfast. That idea of second Robo getting up to 4 Colossus very quickly, and again, you can get the quick 4 Prism as well, against a HeRoMaRinE that went for that 630-ish stim timing with tanks and all that stuff, and you've been spending your starport production time on building the Raven, then building the Medivacs. If MaNa was able to run across the map on 2.5 bases with 4 Colossus and everything else in that Warp Prism, it was going to be very likely that HeRoMaRinE wasn't going to have the proper answers to the Colossus, as 2 probes go down there on the Reaper play early, which again, yes, you committed to 2 Reapers, but losing 2 probes like that does not feel good here, and it's now just a single Adept. MaNa can't mine out of his natural. In fact, this Adept might just go down right here. HeRoMaRinE on this early game is getting so much value. The Adept is going to fall, I think. No, he missed target. So there it is. Okay, Adept will fall at the end of the day. Could have gotten more, but still, Adept 3 probes there for the early game unit, Steadfast. That's a pretty solid move.
Yeah, part of the reason why HeRoMaRinE obviously missed target there is the Adept on his side of the map was being quite a nuisance. MaNa is going to, he's going to snipe a Marine. Won't be able to get anything more than that. And where does that Adept end up heading? Oh, did it get, wait, where did it go?
It died to the Hellion.
Oh, okay, the Hellion did get a pick off. I was going to say, I was surprised it was only on a 1 shot away from being killed. This is not a great start for MaNa. It's not a disaster yet, but it's a good start for HeRoMaRinE. He's going to be happy with this. Now, where he can turn things around is, of course, as we see now with this Oracle, but he's going to have to be very wary. There's a hidden mine, pseudo hidden mine, in the main mineral line. And if MaNa ends up getting a little bit overconfident, he could end up being in some trouble. But no, HeRoMaRinE will end up not being able to, I guess, bait MaNa in. It's a little bit of a weird position to put that Widow Mine, kind of optimistic. Oh, there is a mine in the natural, but good hold position from MaNa. He finds himself 4 SCVs and a Marine. Very nicely done. No, okay. Oh, man. Whew.
Oh, man.
Those Oracles, man, they really... They love to Tokyo drift, and sometimes it can be a problem. In this case, it didn't lead to its demise, but that got a little bit scary for a moment. Still, MaNa, great control, gets the job done.
Yeah, and getting 4 SCVs and a Marine, I think, was the grand total. But getting that amount of damage off a single Oracle, I can count on one hand the number of times that a single Oracle gets significant damage done to a Terran. Because, well, it takes 3 shots to kill an SCV. You have a lot more anti-air units than other races generally have. And only getting the one of them, really, that tends to be for map control, for revelations, for stasis traps, for things of that nature. And getting that value early is going to be really nice. Dives on top of the Raven here, and, well, Ravens aren't quite as important, Steadfast, in this matchup as they were a month ago, because they don't get interference matrix by default. Even still, knocking these Marines down, getting that Raven, shutting down the harass potential anti-armor missiles. That is so nice for MaNa, on top of the damage the Oracles got. Game 1 was pretty rough. And honestly, the start of this game too was pretty bad as well. But getting that damage with his Sky units it's much better for MaNa. Feeling a little better.
Yeah, and he's in the main base right now, and he grabs another couple of workers, I think. Looks like he got 1 more SCV. Somehow didn't get a second one. It looked like he was going to, but the Medivac's healing actually kept a couple of SCVs alive. Still, this is really nice for MaNa. At this point, I think I would like to see him just take that Oracle out of the main base and focus on recalling the army. He's already gotten himself a good position. He's got Colossus number 1 on the, well, very nearly on the field. Like, it is very close to completing. Picks off even a few more Marines. That's going to weaken the push He's done a great job of putting himself into a great position. He just needs to be careful not to overextend, I think, and kind of give away some of that lead that he's gotten himself. Now, there is this drop on the top right. That is a very interesting little drop. It's 6 Marines and a mine. And MaNa, for his part, is sending the Phoenixes back home, is looking to posture defensively. But yeah, I'd really like to see that Oracle focusing on Revelations with the... to try and tag the main army, because yeah, he's definitely put himself in a good position, but doesn't want to take any unexpected damage.
Dude, MaNa's just reading... Jesus. MaNa's reading HeRoMaRinE like a book there. He has the Phoenix exactly where they need to be, right at the time that the drop arrives. He pulls the heli, or excuse me, the Phoenix over to the right side, kills everything off there. And now big game. I mean, we talk about big game pushes. This is a little game push. This is a tiny push. It's 4 Marines, a couple Marauders, a heli, and thinking about diving in, and really not going to get much done. This is, if this gets any value outside of that single probe and maybe knocking a pylon down to the low ground, which there's nothing there. If this gets value, well, it should not get value. Almost dives on top of the Colossus. That was scary. And the drop on the other side, Widowmine's 8 probes go down. And even as we're praising MaNa for the incredible defense that he's been putting on, the show he's been putting on here, you still don't want to lose 8 probes.
No, that actually hurts a lot, and that really undercuts things. And now HeRoMaRinE starting to turn on the jets a little bit. Will drop these units into the main base. MaNa, this is... Oh, the Widowmine! Okay, good split from MaNa, and he actually drags the second mine onto the medevacs to kill those off more quickly. Will make sure that he cleans this up. That's actually very nice. Probably should leave that Immortal on top of the Marauders, but the Zealots, they're going to take care of business, and it'll be just fine. MaNa, that got a little messy for him, and he is supply blocked right now, but he still makes the defense happen. He's been mining off 3 bases. Even though he lost a bunch of probes, he's still in a good position. He does need to make sure that none of those mine drops slip through again, but he's definitely in a good position in this game number 2.
That he is now. 4th base on the way here for MaNa. Gabe does have his 3rd base done, right? It is an orbital. He can run it over. First of all, this Phoenix are going to scout this. Well, I thought they were going to scout it immediately, and instead it's going to be the Warp Prism that sees what's happening. Now here's the pressure coming out of MaNa. It's two Colossus. It's a bunch of Phoenix. Force fields are going to be really nice to make sure these Marauders go down. And Steadfast, it feels like there's no way that HeRoMaRiNE's going to be able to hold on to this 3rd for a while. MaNa, he's reinforcing Zealots. He does have charge done right now as well, so he's actually just going to try to make this break happen. Widowmines are nice, sure, fine, but this army is trapped into a corner here, and the Colossus are just raining hellfire from above. SCVs are going to have to get pulled. That is not going to do it here. HeRoMaRinE, he needs a miracle. He needs it right now, but there are no miracles. No heroes, no Marines either. MaNa taking his first map off of HeRoMaRinE in just over a year in this game number 2.
Yeah, and what a time to do it in the elimination round of the playoffs. HeRoMaRinE not tapping out just yet, but it's just a matter of time. He knows he's been broken. MaNa getting it done there. Things got a little bit dodgy. The double drop gets into the main base right after he loses a bunch of probes. But he manages to, clean everything up. I really liked that little mind drag he did on the medevacs to make sure, because there is a world where the mind drag doesn't connect. The Phoenixes, they take forever to kill medevacs. A few bio units lift up, they get out. MaNa, all of a sudden, maybe HeRoMaRinE creates a little bit more pressure on another side of the map. Things start to kind of get wobbly and weird, and that game goes on. But MaNa gets the cleanup, and it's a good job.
Yeah, and you talk about finding value. For a second there was that one Colossus all by its lonesome right outside the natural, and HeRoMaRinE had that, 2 medevac force or something. It's like, man, if he dives in there, even if he loses the army, getting a Colossus fort might be worthwhile. And that's probably not true considering how much damage he took. But if he can dive in and get out with like half the army, that also, again, opportunities there that HeRoMaRinE could have found something. Doesn't happen. HeRoMaRinE just put on the back foot. And now we're tied up at 1 apiece here, moving on to Site Delta for game 3. And Steadfast, we set this series up. Again, MaNa has not won a map since last year, December of last year. He hasn't won a series since 2020. Well, we already have that first map. Does he have what it takes to also get that first series? Well, to do that, game number 3 is on the way as he continues that journey.
And we have spawning up at the top left for Team Liquid. He needs your energy to continue this, well, continue this success. It is MaNa.
And in the bottom right, just taking a little bit too much damage from the Phoenix, from the Oracles early on. For MaNa Sports, it's HeRoMaRinE.
And part of the reason why I talked about it in that previous game with the very quick setup, with the, the very quick cleanup of the Phoenixes on those medevacs, is if those medevacs do get away, they manage to unload, all of a sudden the Phoenixes, there's only 5 of them, they can't fight the units, so that drop stays around. Because it got picked off so quickly, MaNa was able to take advantage of the fact that he had the Colossus tech, and his opponent didn't really have a great answer to it. And obviously, as you mentioned, the +1 in charge completed at a critical moment as well. MaNa really utilizing all the weapons he had, and you realizing as he got that cleanup, he's able to push across the map and just doesn't let HeRoMaRinE turn that into a macro game. He realizes his advantage and ends the game. So really well done from MaNa. And because it's entirely possible that if MaNa doesn't attack there, we're actually still even now in game number 1, and HeRoMaRinE secures a 3rd base. He gets a 4th, gets up to Ghost. Things get weird.
Yeah, but I think it's also important to point out as you talk about this idea that MaNa moving across the map, he hit that solid timing. MaNa, I think, has identified something, and that is, again, that these early Colossus pressures, this ability, we saw him try to do it in game number 1. It didn't work, but he tried. And again, I think he's identified here that HeRoMaRinE, with these pushes that he likes to go for, he doesn't have the most incredible anti-Colossus defensive setup. Yeah, if you get 3 tanks sieged up outside of the Protoss third, it's going to be rough. And honestly, he hasn't even been hitting with 3 tanks necessarily. But if the Protoss defends that, or if it just kind of goes even, and then they can run across the map and suddenly you're defending 2, 3, 4 Colossus, the builds aren't building up to that. So it appears we're going to have to see what's going to happen in this game, but thus far in the series, that's kind of the story that MaNa wants to tell us. Colossus timings in the mid game, don't let the game go late, smash him with 2, 3, 4 Warwalkers.
Yeah, it's entirely possible. I mean, what I want to see, and what I'm glad we're seeing again in game number 3, is what we saw in game 2, and that is a quick Stargate opener. Now, it's not to say that HeRoMaRinE is going to have it's not to say that HeRoMaRinE won't tighten up his defense, but his defense in game number 2 against the Phoenix play wasn't what we've come to expect from HeRoMaRinE. It was not clean. It was not perfect. He lost a lot of Marines multiple times. He lost the Raven very quickly. The Oracle found a lot more damage than I think you'd expect it to. And I think maybe that injury that HeRoMaRinE has been dealing with, either it's 1, still nagging him, or 2, has led to him not being able to practice as much as he'd like, and has kind of left him a little bit in maybe limbo in terms of how sharp we usually see him. I could be entirely wrong about that, and I hope he proves me wrong, but as MaNa, I think it's definitely time to test him with that, and so I'm glad that he's going for that Stargate opener once again. Now, HeRoMaRinE does something very interesting. He goes for 3 Reapers, 1 Hellion, and a Cyclone, but is going to, I believe, keep that Cyclone at home for the defense. Yeah, just anticipating a potential move, and he's even got the Widow Mines, anticipating an Oracle or a Phoenix flying over that starport, but now it is going to be that move out, and this is kind of what you want as the Protoss player, is for your opponent to move into you with that double mine drop. If HeRoMaRinE doesn't figure this out before he commits, this could go very well for MaNa.
Yeah, he does see the Stargate, so that is important.
Oh my god, he sees it by just the smallest margin. Oh, that is very unfortunate for MaNa, because I think there's an angle he could have put that Stargate on the edge of the pylon where it wouldn't have been scouted by the Reaper. But instead, HeRoMaRinE gets to turn around with that medevac. Oh, that was almost a really nice situation for MaNa. Instead, it's HeRoMaRinE avoiding a very unfortunate interaction in the early game.
I mean, I still think it's a pretty solid situation for MaNa, right? Yeah, you didn't kill the medevac. You didn't knock the Widow Mines down. But you also created this scenario where HeRoMaRinE isn't gonna get damage on you whatsoever. He's not gonna run across the map. That's a commitment to It's not for Widowmines. It's not that significant commitment, but it is still a commitment to Widowmines and the medevac early on to that early value that is not going to really bear any fruit. So HeRoMaRinE, he's going to have to sit back at home a little bit. +1 stim, combat shields, got those upgrades going, sure. But already his build, the idea about how he wants to play this game is interrupted a little bit just because of how the build orders have balanced out against each other.
Yeah, it ends up being even for sure. But what I was thinking is like that's a juicy situation for the Protoss. Like when you know what your opponent's done, you know that it's the double mine drop, you kill everything, you don't lose anything yourself, you've identified your opponent's build, and you've gotten yourself a bunch of free pickoffs in the early game, and now those Phoenixes don't have to really worry about too much, unless of course your opponent commits to more mines, in which case then they've slowed down their other tech. Like there's a lot of advantages if you get those early pickoffs. Now, I still think that with MaNa taking no damage on the Phoenixes, he's found a couple of these early game units in the Reaper and the Hellion, and he's getting up to the Colossus tech. This is a decent spot for MaNa, but this is a very different game from game number 2. This is not a position where he's, you know, gotten a bunch of damage early on and really put his opponent on the back foot.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. He's lost 200 units. One Hellion, one Reaper, 200 resources are the only things that have died this game. So neither player really taking all that much damage. The Reaper, again, scouts, wants to see and actually gets a great scout there, sees that Phoenix are still being made, which is the key thing to see as this happens. And now, I mean, I don't like this fight for HeRoMaRinE. Yeah, there are a lot more Marines, but a lift there on the tank is still going to be pretty solid. Extended Thermal Lance done soon enough, but not ready just yet. And meanwhile, the Reaper in the natural, it's going to get 3 probes.
Okay.
This single Reaper, we talked about how no one's getting damage done well. A Reaper in the main, apparently at 7 minutes, is worth 3 to 4 probes. Apparently.
Oh my god, please don't lose more workers to this MaNa. Oh, he loses 4 workers, and he's... Okay, struggling a little bit. We do see the push coming in, sieging up the low ground, going to be able to find the Cyber Core. MaNa actually shooting his own Cyber Core for a moment with the Colossus, showing a little bit of lack of composure maybe in this dangerous situation. He shouldn't lose too much, but he needs to make sure that he doesn't stumble here, trying to make a defense happen. Like, for example, losing a Phoenix for that Cyclone. I think that's a trade that you're happy to take here as HeRoMaRinE once again. I feel like HeRoMaRinE should maybe give up this position, but he is going to actually reinforce it. Instead of trying to continue to push on the third base, he is going to continue to reinforce this position. He does leave the medevacs very much hanging, will lose one for free, and now he's going to give up the position. This is interesting. Oh, he's going to just sprint for the third. Oh, but the force fields on the ramp gets him great, or rather the sentries get some great force fields on the ramp. Widowmines will connect on the Zealots. This is getting a little bit busy here in this mid game.
Absolutely. It's not there's a Widowmine drop on the bottom left side, but the big deal is that tank went down, and that's what was anchoring things. That was what made it somewhat scary for the Colossus to engage. So knocking that tank down the moment that goes down. We see HeRoMaRinE, he has to sprint back home, has to back on up here. And now again, this Colossus timing for MaNa. 3 Colossus, 7 Phoenix, extended Thermal Lance done, Warp Prism on the way, charges done. Everything is lining up pretty nicely for MaNa to, again, try to make this pressure happen. And Steadfast, the only anti-Colossus tech, there's a single tank that's going to get lifted, I assume. But instead, he goes after the Marauders instead here. And the Zealots from the left side as well tries to get on top of things. The tank gets lifted, and again, this pressure out of MaNa that he's been looking for. His Zealots, though, they're mostly going to run out. And it seems like, yes, SCVs have to get pulled, but MaNa's not going to pump through, not right now. Widowmines, they get a massive shot. 10 probes go down. But the third base is going to get forced to get lifted here. Both players, 10 probes, 10 workers down. Lots of damage. I gotta feel that, again, MaNa is still able to mine a little bit. HeRoMaRinE's off that third base. It's not great for either side, but MaNa a little bit better out of that trade.
Actually, don't know if I agree with that. That was... I mean, it's really nice that he finds the value. Oh, please lift. No, he doesn't get the lift. And that's going to be a dead Phoenix. He could have lifted both of those units. Instead, he goes back, loses 2 more probes and a Phoenix there. Yeah, losing 10 workers like that is not ideal. MaNa almost winning the game outright, but not going to be able to do so. And now there's a bunch of Vikings against no blink. All the Phoenixes have actually died. The War Prism is very low on HP. I think at this point, the Vikings are just going to be kings of the sky. MaNa, he is going to end up losing everything. and with it, he will lose the game. There is no coming back from that. He just warped in 7 High Templar, and for a moment, that was 7 of his 9 units. He only had 2 army units on the field. But I think HeRoMaRinE can just walk across the map and just kill him. I don't think there's anything MaNa can do.
Absolutely not there. I mean, MaNa, I guess he felt pressured to be aggressive to keep that third base from landing because of that damage he took. But imagine if he took that around a shield battery. Imagine if he took that fight on his home turf when he has better warpins, when he has that ability to reinforce a little bit better, make sure that you're okay. I think he's probably still in this game. We're still okay. But at this point, the Colossus, they're all dead. There's a drop in the main base. Things are getting depowered. No more Gateway, no more Stargate. And this Colossus, I mean, it's 1 Colossus versus 7 Vikings. I don't care how much repair you have. It's not going to matter. Now, Archon's not going to get shots on the Medivacs. And that was maybe your 1 bit of copium, you know? You get Archon shots and some Medivacs. You do that value. But MaNa, on the other side, 8 SCVs have gone down. It's something.
I mean, it's something, but he's down almost 60 army supply at this point. He's down the upgrades. He never got that +1 weapons. He just now has it on the way. It's 1-1 versus 0-0. HeRoMaRinE, at this point, he just needs to wait for a couple of ghosts, and then he can EMP the Archons, and he just walks through this army. He's already got 3 ghosts with it. He's going to land the Vikings, and I think in about 15 seconds, maybe less, we're headed to game number 4.
All right, so 12-10 is when this GG is going to happen as the EMP is on this army. You don't even have to attack. You can A move, and yes, that fast. 7 seconds too early, but MaNa taps out HeRoMaRinE on series point.
Yeah, there was just nothing he could do after he lost that army out at the front of the natural expansion. Like it's completely over. Like he lost all of his Colossus. He lost so many Zealots. He just lost so much. And yeah, very unfortunate for MaNa. Because things looked really good up until that Widowmine shot landed on the third base. I also think he lost a lot more Phoenixes. I didn't realize. I thought he came out of that fight at the natural with like multiple Phoenixes still, but it seemed like he only had 2 Phoenixes left after that big push, and he didn't transition into Blink, didn't get anything to deal with Vikings. Yeah, at that point, it's actually becomes a really big problem if he sticks around on the map, and he really, really overstayed it. But that's tough for MaNa.
Yeah, the other thing we have to point out is I was looking at this. I'm like, the Viking count's not all that big. He should be okay. HeRoMaRinE went double starport. He was building 4 Vikings at a time. That allowed him to go from no Vikings to all the Vikings he needed very quickly. And that may have actually just caught MaNa off guard. He thinks he can posture off of a standard Terran production of 2 Vikings at a time, maybe something like that. And like, I can hang around a little bit. It's going to be okay. My Blinkless Stalkers can probably zone enough. It's going to be fine. But 4 Vikings at a time, going up to 8, going up to 12 that quickly, that's a bit of a different timing. And I guess MaNa didn't expect it or whatever happened. But regardless, it was a horrible fight. He loses everything and is forced to tap out of the game just about 15 seconds later. So that happened, but we have another game. And Steadfast, every single time that MaNa, well, it's happened once, but every time that MaNa has been kind of smashed out of a game, he's had a really solid comeback. So game 4, we're going to game 5. That's how that works.
If only that were how the world actually worked, but we'll see. If anything, I think I'm worried about MaNa's mental going into this game because he did have a lot of opportunities. I hope he can do exactly what you're saying. I am a little worried. We'll see. We'll see, though.
I choose to believe, but in order to do that, he's got to overcome this player in the bottom left in the red. Looking better and better each game. Maybe not game 2, but it's good enough for HeRoMaRinE. It's Mouse Sports. Mouse Sports, it's HeRoMaRinE.
And his opponent spawning up at the top right for Team Liquid. He needs your energy. It is MaNa. And yeah, I do want to give a lot of credit to HeRoMaRinE there. He was good with the Reaper Scout. He was able to figure out, of course, about the Phoenix play, about that Stargate, turned the Widowmine drop around. A lot of really good moves from HeRoMaRinE, and even you pointed it out as well. checking on the Stargate to see if it was still producing more Phoenixes. He pulled away as well from that third base, knowing that he couldn't fight the army, and if he tried, it was going to be a bad time. Just making all the right moves. And even though that game 2 didn't go according to plan, HeRoMaRiNE is still playing a very strong series.
That he is. And again, you know, it's been a rough tournament for HeRoMaRiNE. You talked about the injury, you talked about everything else. HeRoMaRiNE at times has been the best TVP player in the world. From like 5 to 8 minutes, or 8 to 12, like that mid-game 2.5 base timing. Regardless of everything else, regardless of the injury, how much he's been practicing, hasn't been practicing, having that feather in your cap and having that just history of dominance, it shows. I mean, it can show up at any time. And we saw HeRoMaRiNE, he smashes in game 1. It's a little scarier, but he does hold on, and then he eventually smashes in game 3. So if I'm HeRoMaRiNE, I want to see. If I'm a HeRoMaRiNE fan, I want to see more of that. The big game pushes, that aggression, finding its way onto the other side, and not losing a Raven and 5S and like 7 SCVs to the first Stargate units. That's kind of key.
Yeah, it's definitely very important to keep things tight, and he was able to do so. He was able to do so in game number 3, but at the same time, MaNa didn't really go for much with those Phoenixes in game 3. In game 2, he was very active with the Oracle, quite active with the Phoenixes. I would even say that after he got good damage done, MaNa should maybe have chilled out a little bit more with the Oracle, and maybe just recalled it for. I already called the audible for it. It worked out for him regardless, but I would have liked to have seen him, focus on holding the initial pushes. In game 3, though, he really didn't do much aggressively at all with the Phoenixes, and I hope we see a little bit of a switch up in this game number 4 if he does elect to go for the Phoenix play. Now, we do see HeRoMaRiNE. He is not going to be going for the same opener he's gone for in, I think, pretty much every game, the mine drop. He's going to delay the starport and go for a 3-1 opener. And I do like that he's mixing things up here.
Yeah, and actually against this Stargate style, which by the way, I do appreciate MaNa. He learned from game number 1. There's no wall here pylon, so your Stargate gets scouted. Instead, it's very far behind the mineral line, hard to scout. But a 3-rack stim timing. Yes, this is a 3-1, so it's not a pure 3 racks, pure 4 racks, but even still, getting that stim that early against a Protoss player that's open Stargate, well, Stargate units steadfast, they do a lot of things. They kill workers, they give you vision, they lift things up if you're talking about Phoenix. They don't handle 20 to 30 stim Marines in your face. That is kind of their weakness. So MaNa is going to have to figure this out with the first Oracle. He's going to have to adapt, get some Immortals out of that Robo. And for now, well, the Oracle trying to dive into the main base, and there's not a Widow Mine here, at least not that I see. So he's going to get a couple SCVs to start, which is very nice. And he's going to see the Marine count. He's going to see that second barracks. He's going to have a rough idea about what's happening. It's a little bit better start than even game 3 was.
I mean, it's a way better start than game 3 was. It's a really, really nice start. Keeps that, even, I think you're saying even than game number 2.
True.
And
yes.
Even in game number 2, yeah, he keeps the Oracle very high on HP, scouts everything with a revelation, sees that, should be able to know that there's no starport. Well, actually, he didn't see the third barracks, so maybe might not know, but I think he's going to have a good idea. Regardless, I do like this start for MaNa, and this is promising for a game number 5, but HeRoMaRiNE, he is going to have a lot of bio units. He's going to be hitting at an earlier timing than the previous games, and MaNa once again does take a very late third Nexus, and that's going to mean that he has to defend it.
I mean, honestly, Steadfast, knowing what we know, and again, MaNa hasn't seen everything, but knowing what we know, that third base might even be, Widow Mine there. It's not going to kill anything, but still damage on the Phoenix when you're trying to defend something like this is so important. In all honesty, again, knowing what we know, this pressure coming on the map right now, that third base might even be a little bit too fast. As again, he's not building multiple Immortals. He's got the one. He's building Colossus behind this. MaNa doesn't seem to have the read, and this bio army on the ground. What do we have to defend? We have an Immortal. We have 2 Adepts. We have a Stalker. This is not a lot here.
He could have gotten such a good force field on the ramp, but instead, HeRoMaRiNE sprints past him. He skill checks MaNa, and unfortunately, MaNa fails the skill check, and that is going to cost him his tournament life. The Colossus will get depowered. MaNa, if he drops the force field, this move is not possible. but he didn't see the army coming. He didn't have that Oracle back home for Revelations on it. GG, well played gets called, and it is all over. HeRoMaRinE with the snap call says, I don't think you're paying attention.